welcome back to the Boropolis Podcast. Of course, I'm joined with Nathan, as always, and we record this fresh off the back of a very convincing victory away at Huddersfield. Always the best time to record a podcast, fresh off the back of a win. Of course, we'll dissect the Preston game as well, but we'll probably just skirt over that because we want to talk about yesterday's result. But firstly, Nathan, how are we doing?
Yeah, if you ask me how am I doing after Tuesday night, I think it'd have been a very different story to now. But yeah, buzzing with yesterday's game and can't wait to get into dissecting this now.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we do have to talk about Preston first, of course. Tuesday night, second game of Chris Wilder's tenure as Middlesbrough boss. I think we were both sort of saying last week on the podcast that we were going into this expecting nothing less than 3 points. Well, I mean, we need to just stop talking on this podcast perhaps about predicting games because it just didn't go that way, really. So before we talk about the action in the game, as I always do, I'll ask you about the starting 11, and from the Millwall game, it was unchanged. So were you happy enough with that, Nathan?
Yeah, no qualms about it, really. I thought that the players that were in the side against Millwall did enough to keep all their places going into Tuesday night. I think that first half, particularly as we talked about in the podcast last week, the first half against Millwall was fantastic, and we should have put them to bed. And I think we were hoping that we'd be able to continue that through a full 90-minute period instead of just the 45 and get a good positive result against Preston.
Yeah, it was important, obviously, that we did eventually find that first win under Chris Wilder, because I know there's that stat that's been sort of darting around about that Chris Wilder didn't pick up a point in his first 4 games at Sheffield United, or I think it was Sheffield United. It may have been Northampton. I'm pretty sure it was Sheffield United, though. In fact, Nathan, you're going to know this. I'm just going to ask you before.
Do you know what? I don't know it.
Right, well, I mean, if that is an expert summary from the Boropolis lads, then I don't know what is. But I'm almost sure Sheffield United. So someone's probably screaming, telling me I'm wrong. But we're just going to go with Sheffield United. So anyway, yes, it was important that we got that first win under the belt. And of course, we all went into Preston thinking that that was sort of going to be the occasion where we got that. It didn't turn out to be that way, but obviously first half, again, it was similar to the Millwall game where we started quite quickly on the front foot, obviously in that Chris Wilder traditional 5 at the back formation. And, you know, we were, as I say, on the front foot. We were looking to create chances. We did create chances. And to be honest, we were just a better side. I can't really remember Preston having even a chance in the first half, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, Nathan, were you happy with the way that we started and the way that first half went?
Yeah, I was, to be fair. I don't think Preston has all too many chances, as you say. We limited them pretty much throughout the game, really. It's cost us in the end. We only gave them 2 chances and they finished them both. But yeah, in that first half, I thought we were very dominant once again. I think we were beginning to see Chris Wilder's style of football come into play even more. Lee Peltier was fantastic throughout the full game on Tuesday night, overlapping, and I think we'll talk about his effort in the second half later on in the podcast. But yeah, we dominated that first half and got our just reward from the corner. McNair heading us 1-0 up.
Yeah, it was a great header from Paddy McNair, and one of them where for a split second when he scored, I thought, well, hang on a second, shouldn't he be taking the corners? But yeah, we had a little bit of a change of a set-piece taker, and I know even, I think it was earlier on this season where we spoke about the delivery from set pieces and, you know, from either side, whether it be Tavernier or McNair's, is sometimes a little bit inconsistent. And, you know, for a team that, I don't think we have a particularly small team. You know, there's Crooks, there's Bamba, there's normally Fry, of course, but not at the moment. You know, we should probably be doing better from set pieces. So to see Johnny Howson step up and make a little bit of a change and deliver what was the inch perfect corner, really, straight onto the head of McNair. It was a nice change, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think Johnny Howson's one of them players. Of course, played in midfield for most of his career, apart from a few daft spells at centre half and at right back under Jonathan Woodgate. I think he's one of those type of players that has the ability to put in a fantastic ball, probably 9 out of 10 times. And yeah, he finds McNair's head, McNair in all sorts of space, which the marking weren't too great from Preston. And yeah, he finds the top corner and puts us in at the break 1-0 up. And I think we just looked to try and build on that in the second half, and it didn't really happen for us.
Yeah, we're having problems with that Wi-Fi again, but we're going to continue. It's telling me that the internet connection's unstable, but we'll battle on again. Just bear with us. So, yeah, Nathan, you say about going into half-time with the lead, and it's important, obviously, that we do, especially with our sort of the change in the way we play from first half to second half. It's been a pattern all season, really. But just before we move on into the second half, I just want to touch on a spell from, I think, if I'm right, it was probably around the 20th to probably the 30th, possibly even the 35th minute. And I can't really pinpoint an exact chance that come from it or a real standout moment, but I just remember I was at the game with my dad and I turned to him and said, we've just had the ball for about 15 minutes straight. And I mean, obviously we didn't. I'm sure Preston would win the ball back occasionally, but it's this new style under Chris Wilder where, you know, a lot of people have spoke about that instant change, and the signs were certainly there against Millwall and Preston. And it's just one where, as a Middlesbrough fan, I sat back at the match and thought, am I at the wrong game or something here? We're keeping hold of the ball, we're recycling possession, and it's just lovely to watch, really.
Yeah, and it's something that I think we're all a bit shocked by, because we've had to endure years of hoofing the ball up to centre forwards that can't really trap the ball and can't really bring others into play, naming no names. But yeah, it's so good to see now that we are dominating the ball in large periods of the game. We'll get on to Huddersfield later on, but our first half performance again from Saturday to Tuesday was unbelievable. I thought that the other team, whether it be Preston or Huddersfield, didn't really have a say in the game in the first half, and it is very good to see, and hopefully it continues when the players continue to be more confident in playing this new style that Chris Wilder's implementing in this football club.
Yeah, it's obviously going to be a change, but from the early signs in the early games, it has been quite remarkable how quick it has changed and how quick his tactics are starting to show, to be honest. I mean, one thing that didn't change, though, in the second half was that similar pattern. We've mentioned it already, and, you know, it goes back to that sort of meme on Twitter where it's Boro in the first half, Boro in the second half, and, you know, one half of the drawing of a horse is a beautifully crafted pencil drawing of the back of a horse, but then the front half is sort of like a reception kid's template on a horse, and there's just a complete change, and I don't know why it is. Luckily, that wasn't the case against Huddersfield, but yeah, we really shot ourselves in the foot in that second half, and barring really Lee Peltier, as you said earlier, he just sort of switched on his inner Cristiano Ronaldo and cut inside and hit the crossbar. We didn't really create huge chances in the second half, but I think the main theme from that second half was just our own errors letting us down, really.
Yeah, the first goal, the equaliser from Ched Evans, he finds himself in all kinds of space, really. I think Tavernier was the one who is meant to be marking him, which I couldn't really fathom while I was watching the game on iFollow. I couldn't fathom why Tavernier was tasked with marking Ched Evans, who's probably one of Preston's better players in the air. And yeah, he finds the corner with a good header and ties the game up at 1-1. And then just a moment of madness. Almost, I think it was about 5 minutes later. Preston have attacked and we've won the ball back. Bamba's tried to play out from the back, which is fine. I think Wilder does want us to play out from the back, but I suppose you just have to pick your moments when to play out from the back and when to just get rid and be safe. And Sol Bamba's tried to find Bowler, come off McNair and found its way to Rees, who's bent one in the top corner, and it was just a complete moment of madness. And Preston did not deserve anything at all from the game, never mind 3 points. And yeah, it was, as you say, it was our own fault for shooting ourselves in the foot, but these things will happen when we're trying to play a new way. Mistakes will be made by some players, and it cost us on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and it also kept up that theme of us talking about an opposition player previewing the game and then them scoring, because I wouldn't like to think how many times, and I said it earlier on this season, I'm not sure whether it's just our football expertise, Nathan, or whether it's just unlucky, to be honest. And I say that tongue-in-cheek, of course. But yeah, I remember Willock for QPR, Dykes for QPR, and there's been a few more, to be honest, where we've sort of not earlier on in the podcast, a week before, and then they've gone on and scored. But yeah, like you say, it was sort of just our own fault, really. It was not that it was a bad sort of team performance in the second half as such. But yeah, it was two individual things where for the first, Tavernier shouldn't really be marking Ched Evans. And for the second, all of the time that he's played, he's been superb for us. But it just so happens that Sol Bamba makes that mistake. It comes back off McNair. And, a player like Rees, he's never really going to miss from there in the form he was in going into that game. So yeah, it was difficult to take, of course. And I know you texted me straight after saying, I'm ready to run. I'm ready to run. But, I think given sort of a little bit of time after the game, everyone sort of thought, well, do you know what? There's signs there that we were trying to do the right thing. It's two individual errors. But what was interesting after the game that Chris Wilder highlighted in his post-match press conference was the sort of quote about we went individual in the second half, and a lot of people were trying to sort of do their own thing and be the star. I mean, firstly, do you think he's talking about any sort of player in particular there? And also watching the game, did you feel like there was moments where players could have just, made that final pass and instead opted to take an extra touch or just instead have a shot and be a bit greedy? Did you notice that?
You know what? I didn't really notice it, if I'm honest. I just thought that second half, it was a bit of a contrast to the first in terms of we weren't really dominating as clearly as we were in that first half. I can't really remember us having many, if at all, any chances in that second half, really, that completely tested Daniel Everson in the Preston goal. I'm not quite sure on the individuals and playing as individuals comment really from Wilder. Of course, him and his coaching staff will have picked up on certain things that my untrained footballing eye hasn't caught. But yeah, it seemed that in the second half we were just a bit disjointed really compared to the first half, and at the end of the day, two mistakes have cost us. And yeah.
Yeah, I think disjointed is probably the good word to use in that second half. And, disjointed, probably lacking a little bit of cohesion. We didn't really create anything, as you said. Obviously, Peltier hit the bar. It was a great effort. But apart from that, I think I remember one being cut back to Tav, and he didn't manage to sort of trouble the keeper. I think it may have got blocked. But yeah, we didn't really create anything. And it was, as I've said, a sort of continuation of earlier on this season where we come out for the first half and look a completely different side of the second half. So that's something obviously Chris Wilder is going to look to fix, and him and his coaching staff, I'm pretty sure he'll find an answer to that. So moving into a game that they did manage to sort of control in both halves. And although Huddersfield scored late on yesterday, I don't think that win was ever in doubt. I'll ask you about that starting 11 first. One change, of course, Lee Peltier or Cristiano Ronaldo, whichever way you want to call it, dropped out, and he's going to be out for 3 weeks, which potentially could be quite a big miss. But yeah, it was the only change in that team. Dijksteel come in. Nathan, were you happy to see a sort of fairly unchanged team again?
Yeah, fairly unchanged, apart from, as you say, Dijksteel coming in. I think it's been talked about a lot that Dijksteel could slot in well in that right-sided centre-half role. I think he has the attributes to play there. He's good at taking the ball out from the back and laying a pass into midfield. And of course, he possesses some pace in the back line, which is vital for us next to Bamba and McNair as well. But yeah, I was quite pleased with the side, and in that first half, it was fantastic. I can't describe it any further than that. It was just absolutely brilliant to see that first half performance.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And I mean, typical, really, Nathan. We tried everything. At least you had tried everything to try and get us tickets to Huddersfield. We were late to the mark to get them. But yeah, typical that we missed such a outstanding performance, really. But, you know, if we're going to play like that and we're not there, then to be honest, Nathan, I'm all for it, because I still managed to watch the game, as I'm sure you did as well. And we were just superb, weren't we, really?
Yeah, I think I put out a tweet after the game. I've never seen us dominate a first half like that in years, really. Huddersfield didn't have any chances at all, really, on goal. And not only chances, but they didn't have any of the ball either, unless it was from kickoffs after we put two in the back of the net. But yeah, that first goal was brilliant. Dijksteel picks up the ball and plays it into Howson. Howson sits down one of their players and just drives through the midfield. But what I'd like to pick up on is Crooks obviously plays a bit further forward than Howson, but as Howson's driving forward, Crooks comes in and fills in Howson's position, which on that Sheffield United T4 football video, it's very good analysis, and that's one of the things that they talk about, that players interchange positions a lot. And yeah, as Howson's stepped further into their half of the pitch, he's played a fantastic ball down the side of Toffolo, and Jones just lays it on a plate to Watmore, and that set the standard for us in that first half.
Yeah, it did, and it's quite interesting. You know, there's been some talk, and you know, we'll get onto it as well, even in the Twitter space that we've done on Thursday night, and you know, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there was a few questions as to whether, you know, Johnny Howson could fill that sort of Ollie Norwood role. I know you've called it that, sort of a deeper lying, you know, the furthest of the three in midfielder that can, you know, spray a pass, can sort of step in from midfield and pick these passes which sort of set us away on attacks. And I thought yesterday in particular, but even in the Preston and Millwall games, I thought he was solid. But yesterday in particular, I thought he was fantastic. And as you say, I mean, he took the ball on the half turn, and Lewis O'Brien, bless him, didn't know which way the ball was going. He was sort of lost, just looking around where Howson was off. And, you know, Howson was off on his travels and just put through that fantastic through ball, and Isaiah Jones just lays it on a plate for Watmore, as you say. In that first half, I mean, there's so many chances that we created, and we'll talk about that special second goal. But even before we'd got that second, I'm almost lost for words at how good we were. And I was saying to this, you know, a few of the lads that I live with at uni, I was saying that I honestly can't think of a first half of any Middlesbrough game for a long, long time. And it'd be interesting to see if you can think of any that we have dominated that much and created that many chances.
No, honest to God, I was in shock yesterday. The first goal went in, and I thought, could we be on our way here to a good route? But yeah, we were brilliant in the first half. Huddersfield didn't have a sniff of the ball at all. And as you say, we had a big handful of chances. I think that's fair to say. And Watmore obviously finishes 2 of them, and he had other chances as well that he had. But yeah, it was shocking to see us dominate as much as we did. Just fantastic to see, like, 2-touch football, just knocking the ball into midfield, McNair, Bamber or Dykesdale knocking it into midfield, playing triangles with the wing backs. It was brilliant to see. And that second goal was goal of the season. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, we've been waiting since we started to talk about that second goal. And to be honest, we could just talk about it for the rest of the podcast. And I don't think anyone would complain, to be honest. It starts off from memory. I mean, I've watched it that many times. I should be able to recall what centimetre of the pitch that each player's pass. But yeah, Tav picks up the ball, obviously spins. He finds Perrault in midfield. Perrault then turns, picks out Crooks. Crooks, goes forward a little bit. And then the audacity to pull off that pass alone. I mean, he threads it just beautifully, slightly in the air, over the Huddersfield defender, into the path of Watmore. And then when you watch it back and realise that he's given it the old no look, I mean, it just goes to show a player that is absolutely brimming with confidence at the moment. And I'm all for it. I mean, we'll spend a bit of time just talking about Matt Crooks after we've finished talking about the goal. But yeah, a superb pass from Crooks. And then, as I've called him in the notes, the ginger Messi, 1 touch, just lobs it straight over Lee Nichols in goal for Huddersfield. And at that point, I was just sat back on. I mean, once I'd celebrated, I just sat back in the sofa and just thought, we're really good. We're really good.
Yeah, it was one of them. I was sat there, obviously watching it on the TV, not being able to get a ticket, and yeah, I was sat there with my mates who are accustomed to watching League One football usually, and that Watmore lob hit the back of the net, and I just turned to him and I just went, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And he's open-mouthed, gobsmacked, same as me. The Crooks ball, the Watmore finish, and it's such a difficult finish as well. Like, it didn't look like he should have gone for a lob for me. I thought he was just going to strike it low and hard, but he's opted for the lob. Lee Nichols is only maybe like 3 or 4 yards off his line, and he's just looped it perfectly over him and put us 2-0 up. And it could have been more after that. We had so many more chances after that. One from Watmore being put through again. And yeah, it was like the perfect first half performance.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And one man, of course, Duncan Watmore got the plaudits, and I think he got man of the match in the end because of the 2 goals. But one man that just, I mean, I'm running out of words to sort of describe how good he is and what a sign he's been. Matt Crooks, just in his gloves yesterday, and I mean, he was just superb. Everything that happened and every chance we created, it almost felt like he had at least one pass or one part of the move. He was just everywhere, wasn't he? And that sort of midfield 3 where he can sort of be slightly advanced on the right just suits him down to the ground, really.
Yeah, he's probably been the signing of the season, hasn't he? He's been absolutely brilliant for us, but he's versatile as well. He can play all over the pitch. We've seen him play as a number 9 under Neil Warnock at certain desperate times in the second half of games, chasing games. Played off the right early on in the season, played in number 10, played in a 6, played in an 8, played at centre-half at one point. He's just unbelievable. He can play all over the pitch, and he consistently gives you 7 or 8 out of 10 every single week. And as you say, yesterday, everything in that first half went through him. he's so good on the ball, and that assist yesterday sums him up really, and sums how confident how much he's playing with confidence at this current time. He's an absolute revelation to this side.
Yeah, and I mean, just something I quickly want to mention is, obviously when I think everyone listening and me and you, of course, we've been to certain games of football, and it's once in a blue moon where Middlesbrough fans will pull out the Olays. But I mean, we're sort of half an hour into the game, maybe it's yesterday. And obviously, as we said, me and you were watching on a stream, and I think you probably heard it. I definitely did, but I'm listening. I'm thinking, I can hear that. I'm sure I can. And it's just, I mean, if that's not a sign of how much of the ball we had in that first half, it was just, it's something so small, but when you sort of realise that the Middlesbrough fans were doing that, it's always another set of fans that are doing that to us. And it was just like, again, one of them sit back on the sofa moments and just, God, how much possession have we had? This is just not a Middlesbrough side.
Yeah, it's such a strange one. Like, this isn't usually us, and to see us put in that first half performance yesterday, completely dominant. Huddersfield didn't have any inch of the ball at all. And the Olays come out, and you just think, is this for real? Like, this isn't Middlesbrough Football Club that I know. It was just one of those where you sit back on the sofa, stretch your legs out. Oh, that's the Boro of now, and Chris Wilder.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to sum it up, really. The Boro of now with Chris Wilder. I mean, it's a nice. It's only one game, and of course, everyone says don't get carried away. But if we can't get carried away after yesterday, then when can we get carried away, really, Nathan? It was a pleasure to watch us. It honestly, and fair play to that travelling away support, superb as always. And we tried everything to get a ticket. Unfortunately, we couldn't. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure if those away fans had paid sort of 3 times the price what they actually paid to get in the stadium yesterday, they would have got the money's worth, really.
Yeah, I just running out of words to describe that first half performance. Outstanding, fantastic, sublime. Pick any of them. We were just unbelievable to watch. I think I said on Twitter that a Boro 2010 Brazil in disguise, 2010 Barcelona, not Brazil, in disguise. Yeah, we're unbelievable, and we've got the Ginger Messi up front as well that's taking chances, like the ones that came to him yesterday. So I don't see why why not, when it comes to going the rest of the season unbeaten and being in the Champions League in a few seasons, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that would be over-exaggerating at all, really, Nathan. And, I mean, I watched the game with an Arsenal fan and a Chelsea fan. And, when I'm sort of making these shouts of just like, we're amazing, we're moving the ball so well, we're a joy to watch. And I said to both of them, this is sort of just an every game thing for you, keeping the ball on the ground, playing nice passing football, and really just breaking teams down. And I said, if this is going to be the norm, then I can definitely get used to this.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that in recent years, as a football team, we haven't experienced keeping the ball on the ground and just trying to keep possession of the ball. Really, it's been years of just kicking it long, chasing loose passes, the ball bouncing off our midfielders' toes, and usually we're just the side that chases everyone else round when they're knocking the ball all over. Teams like Swansea and Fulham that just dominate the ball, play good attacking football, create loads of chances, and usually finish them. And yesterday was like our first taste of what we could be. Chris Wilder spoke about consistency in his post-match press conference there, and I completely agree with him. Yeah, okay, we've put in that performance yesterday, which was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but it needs to continue, hopefully, and I'm sure it will, given time. These players are just getting used to what Chris Wilder wants to do and how he wants us to play. And we got that first sniff yesterday, and I really hope it continues, because it was such a good feeling and so good to watch us play with some real identity that we've been lacking in many a year. We played with real good identity yesterday.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say identity, really, isn't it? Because I remember sort of 3 or 4 podcasts in really at the start of the season, and we were sort of using that as a bit of a buzzword as to what was sort of the problem with the way we were playing. Sort of, we didn't have an identity. It sort of changed week to week, and one day would go direct, the next we'd sort of have one half where we were trying to play it on the ground, and then second half it would be the complete opposite. And one thing you can say, we've only got sort of 4 points out of Chris Wilder's opening 3 games. But what you can say is, for the 3 games, we've had an identity, we've had chances, and really, you look at Millwall, it's a refereeing decision that cost us 3 points. You look at Preston, it's 2 individual errors. Chris Wilder can't be on the pitch and stop that happening. There is such clear signs of a change, and a positive change at that you can't help but feel optimistic about the future, really.
Yeah, there's been no doubt that in every single game we've seen flashes of what is to come and what Chris Wilder wants to implement at this football club. And yesterday was our first real viewing of like a full 90 minutes of what Chris Wilder would like to do with this side and the style of play that he'd like to implement. And if that continues, then I'm all for it, because yesterday was just unbelievable, that first half especially. Even in the second half, we'll move into it now, but second half, yeah, okay, we didn't have as many chances, but we did have a few, and the game could have been well and truly killed. Tavernier had 2 chances, the keeper made a good save, and I think one was blocked as well. Perrault put one just wide. And they're just the ones that have come to my head now, really. So there's 3 chances there that we could have put away, but it wasn't to be. But we limited Huddersfield as well. Huddersfield didn't really threaten us. Yeah, okay, late on they get a goal, which sort of summed up the day, really, for them. Lad comes down the side, off on El Hernandez, doesn't look like it's going anywhere, and it bounces off the post, off Luke Daniels, and finds its way into the back of the net. But the game was done and dusted then. And I think if anyone looks at that scoreline and says anything other than Boro dominated that game, then they're missing something, really.
Yeah, I think obviously, as a lot of football scores, sometimes, the old saying of, oh, well, that scoreline flatters them. But I mean, that scoreline yesterday really did. I mean, flatter, you can think of other words, but it made Huddersfield. If I was the Huddersfield manager after that, I'm thinking, do you know what? I'm quite pleased that we've come away from that only getting beat 2-1, because, as you say, the amount of chances that we created, and there was even a few penalty shouts. I think the one where Tavernier's hit it late on, and it's, for me...
Oh, the hand, yeah.
For me, it was a penalty. So, I mean, you look at that one, of course, and yeah, I mean, the goal, it can't really be helped. Possibly, you could say Hernandez is coming at it the wrong angle, or Daniels can maybe get down a bit quicker. But I think that would be ultra critical. And really, as you say, even when that went in, apart from the sort of typical Boro fan nerves, even they were sort of quite limited yesterday, because I never felt for one moment that was going to end in a draw, or Huddersfield were going to somehow get back into it. So, yeah, I mean, an absolute dominant performance. And what I'd sum it up with is a complete away performance. It had everything, really. Of course, it is lacking that clean sheet, but I mean, really, you couldn't have asked for much more, could you?
No, not at all. Defensively, we were solid. Yeah, okay, we've conceded a daft goal at the end of the game there, which if we don't concede that goal, it's the complete away performance, as you say, with a clean sheet to top it off. But defensively solid, midfield again fantastic. Howson in there, as I said, Howson or Watmore were my man of the match. Howson was absolutely fantastic yesterday, as we've touched on. Crooks and Tavernier both creating chances. Tavernier could have had a couple. Crooks, of course, with his assist, brilliant. The wing backs were fantastic again. And then the forward two, Perrault, we haven't even mentioned really, but I thought he had a big part to play yesterday as well with his movement, of course, creating the chances for Watmore. And yeah, Ginger Messi up front takes his two chances brilliantly and sets us on our way to our first win under Chris Wilder, and what a win it was.
Yeah, and you know, we say complete away performance. One thing that every good away win always sort of has is that embrace between Leo and the away fans at the end of the game, you know, beating his chest and doing his usual, and you know, the away fans love it. All Boro fans love it, don't they? When Leo, he's such a passionate guy, and you can see it means just as much to him under whichever manager. He really is an adopted Teessider, and it was lovely to see a little embrace. I'm sure a few people have seen the photo of him and Wilder at the end of the game, sort of just. And I don't want to sort of make this into a negative, but at times, I don't know how you feel it. I almost felt that sort of Leo under Warnock, it sort of felt like he, not that he wasn't part of the coaching setup, because he quite evidently was, but you know, you look at sort of Ronnie Jepson and Kevin Blackwell, and of course they're sort of Warnock's two sort of go-tos, if you want to call it that. And yesterday it was just quite special seeing Wilder sort of giving Leo a hug, and you know, I don't know what they said, it would be impossible to tell, but sort of it almost looked as if they were both saying, you know, like, this is what we're both doing together. It was just, I might be looking too deep into it, but it was just a really nice moment, I thought.
Yeah, it's always fantastic to see Leo go over that away support at the end of the game. Of course, he's the most passionate man. I swear to God, he's the most passionate man alive. Going over, patting his badge, and saying we're all together. And I thought yesterday, watching that coverage towards the end of the game, that it did look like we were all together, with Chris Wilder pushing Leo over to the away support and pointing at him, and Leo turned around and pointed at Chris Wilder and said, "This guy's the man." And I thought that performance yesterday proved that Chris Wilder is the man. We've got a manager now that has an identity, and God, I really, really hope that this continues, because that performance yesterday was sublime, and one that I just hope we build upon, and hopefully we see that next week against Swansea and long into the future as well, because it was such a fantastic feeling to come away from an away game yesterday knowing that we'd won, but we'd put across our way of playing to Huddersfield and said, this is how we play football, and we're going to beat you playing our way. And we did just that.
Yeah, and I mean, you sound, I mean, we haven't stopped smiling really this podcast, but I mean, as often really is the case when Boro do win, I mean, we both get excited. But let's just talk about, I mean, your tweets last night. I'm sure a lot of people may have seen them. I'm not sure. In fact, you know, those listening, they may not have. But I mean, I was as well. Don't get me wrong. This is in no way me sort of trying to get one over on you, but you really were. You were bang up for it last night, weren't you? You were on cloud nine.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was a good night, I think it's fair to say. Celebrating that Boro win, first win under Chris Wilder. We thought it had come last week against Millwall, but we've had to put the party on hold for a few days, and that performance and win yesterday was just the perfect excuse really to get out and enjoy myself, and I did just that.
Yeah, you did, Nathan, and all credit to you, because, you know, if you can't go out and celebrate a performance like that, then when can you really? Never. So yeah, just going from one exciting sort of end of the game to another thing that I look forward to and I'm always excited for is, of course, listener questions. And, you know, to be honest, I think everyone, at least I'd hope that everyone was just sort of too busy, too excited to even ask a question yesterday, because we didn't actually get as many as what we usually would. But to be honest, I'm just going to put that down to everyone being that ecstatic that they just think, well, we don't need to ask anything. Do you know what I mean? We're too good.
I know,
But yeah,
exactly.
the ones that did leave questions. Guy Bailey, he asked, "What's more urgent, a new goalkeeper or a striker?" And again, we sort of slightly covered this on the Twitter space on Thursday evening. We spoke about the goalkeeper situation at the moment. I think we'll break this down into two questions really. I mean, firstly, for those that obviously didn't listen to the space, we spoke about sort of the goalkeeper and the importance of having a goalkeeper that's sort of calm with the ball at his feet, and you know, I think in the nicest way possible. I don't think Luke Daniels has particularly done anything wrong, but I think one area that he does lack in is his ability on the ball and his distribution. So there's question marks whether potentially in January we could look and try and find a keeper that is a little bit more comfortable with the ball at his feet. Do you sort of echo that, Nathan? Do you feel like that's something that we could look at?
Yeah, I do. I think it's fair point, really. I think both Lumley and Daniels aren't really as comfortable with their feet as Chris Wilder may like, if I'm honest. We saw yesterday we want to play out from the back, and we need a goalkeeper that has the ability and confidence to play out from the back, and be confident in their distribution. And we've seen from Luke Daniels in the period of time that he's been our number one that his distribution isn't the best, and I think that's fair enough to say. So yeah, I think that a goalkeeper is one position that Chris Wilder may identify and think, well, we could do with someone that is more confident playing out from the back and hopefully has the same, well, has a good ability of shot stopping as well, because that'd help, I suppose.
Yeah, very true. And you know, that's one issue, you know, talk about alternatives that we do already have at the club. But I think obviously with Joel Lumley, you know, that we've tried that, we've gone down that route and it didn't quite work out. I think on the ball he is probably a better goalkeeper with the ball at his feet. But you know, goalkeeping isn't just about whether you can pick a pass out or not. And of course, you know, Dejan Stojanovic is still at the club. You know, if it ever got to that extent, which I don't think it will, potentially, you know, he might even get a run of games. I'm not sure whether that would happen, to be honest, but it's another option. But yeah, it's an interesting one, the goalkeeper department, because you know, you look at yesterday really, and Daniels didn't, apart from sort of Huddersfield's goal, he didn't have anything to do really. So it's certainly a question that will probably, you know, continue up until January, and it'll be interesting to see whether we do act and try and bring in a new goalkeeper. And the second part of that question was, you know, obviously what's more urgent, the goalkeeper or the striker? I think everyone is aware that we do need a new striker, and of course, you know, there's been the links sort of suggesting that Uche may be available in January to move on. And again, yesterday he comes on for the sort of final 3 minutes, I think, of additional time. And I just, unfortunately, whether it be the right or wrong decision, I just feel that Uche's time may be numbered at the club, to be honest. I just don't feel like he's going to fit in to what Chris Wilder he's trying to do. And that doesn't mean I think that Ikpeazu is a bad player, because, we've seen performances from him this season where he's bullied defenders, and, he's not someone that I think immediately needs to be moved out. If it was me, I think he gives you a different option, and he could be kept around. But I think with him potentially going, as much as Josh Coburn's made an impact this season, he's still very young. And once you look past those, there's Andras Perrault, who I think is really always going to be in the team, and Duncan Watmore, who, I mean, you wouldn't have thought it yesterday, but it could be argued that he's not even a natural number 9. So I think striker is definitely an area where we need at least one new body in January, and potentially even 2, depending on departures.
Yeah, and I think it's none of the strikers' fault, really. Uche in particular, it's not his fault that Chris Wilder is looking to play the way he wants to play. Uche was brought into the club under Neil Warnock, and Neil Warnock obviously wants to play with a target man up front, and Uche is perfect at that. We saw in the opening fixtures that he was fantastic at bringing the ball under control with his chest and bringing others into play, and bringing others into play with the wingers and Crooks as well. But yeah, I'd agree that he'd probably find his time at the club now, his playing time, he'd find it quite limited. He's not going to turn and run in behind like a Watmore or a Perrault. His movement's not as good as Perrault. And as we saw yesterday with the pairing up front, Perrault and Watmore, they look to have struck up a real good partnership and understanding of each other. And when one moves one way, the other goes another. And yeah, I think we do need a striker. We have been linked with Folarin Balogun from Arsenal, which I keep seeing from Arsenal under 21s. I'm sure he scored a hat-trick last week. And he has played a few games in the first team, in the Europa League in particular. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we do get him in. It was pretty much immediate that in the local papers that he was touted as Chris Wilder's like top transfer target for January. So it'll be interesting to see if we get him in early in January and hopefully help us out in that running after Christmas. But yeah, I'm sure that we will get a striker in, and if Uche's time is up at the club, then I'd like to say thank you, because I thought he was brilliant for the first few games of the season, and I thought that he was pretty much everything that we've needed in a striker for the style of football that we wanted to play under Warnock, knocking the ball long. Uche was fantastic at bringing it down, bringing others in the play, as I've just said. Maybe his goal scoring record wasn't as good as we all will have hoped, but yeah, I think we will get a striker in January, and maybe Uche does see out the exit door.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously don't want to speak too soon, but all sort of reports suggest that. And I think what suggests it even more is the fact, obviously, he has found playing time quite limited. So, we don't want to say anything for definite yet, because, nothing's happened and the transfer window is still a month away. But, signs are pointing towards that. So to answer the question, I think 100%, and I know you'll agree, Nathan, we are in need of a striker in January. So moving on to the next question, James Huskinson is asking about Paddy McNair, and his question is really, we've got a few defenders returning to fitness now. You look at Dale Fry and Grant Hall, and they're reportedly close to returning to first team action. So with those returning, do you think that, Paddy McNair may be moved into midfield again? For me...
Yeah, sorry, Chris, go on.
Yeah, for me, I think it would be mad to move him, really. And I think, don't get me wrong, Paddy McNair can certainly play in midfield. He's quite able to play as a deeper midfielder or someone that can be advanced. But, with the sort of typical Chris Wilder teams and the famous overlapping centre back. Sorry, I mean, even before Wilder had got the job, everyone sort of had already thought about the possibility of Paddy McNair playing in that system and playing as one of those centre backs. I just think that role particularly is absolutely made for him. Really, he's allowed to step out. He can play on the left side of the three or the right side of the three. He can affect the game. He can, even put crosses in. We've seen him score against Preston, and it was from a corner, but potentially that's something that Chris Wilder may have tweaked and changed. But I think for me, it would be mad to move him. I think that role just suits him down to the ground.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, and I think just looking at the future when these players do return from injury, you look at Fry and Hall, and even Peltier coming back in now. He's out injured. These players won't just find the way back into the side straight away, I don't think. I suppose they'll have to work hard and almost earn the place and displace the players that are playing well in this system at this current time. Of course, when you look at Fry and Hall, they haven't played under Chris Wilder yet, so we don't know what they're like in the current system, and it will take some getting used to for them. But yeah, just touching back on McNair, I don't think it'd be right to move him out of that centre half role, really. As you say, we all pointed to McNair as a player that would benefit from Chris Wilder coming in and saying, well, he looks perfect to fit in one of them overlapping centre back roles, and I think he is fitting in really well at the minute and is putting in some good solid performances for us.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And I mean, as we say, it's not that Paddy McNair couldn't do a job midfield, because he certainly could, and he has done in the past. But I just feel like that centre back role sort of just suits him perfectly, really. So I think to move him would be not wrong, but it wouldn't make sense really for me. So moving on really from the questions, before we preview the Swansea game, I know I said we'd mention it earlier on in the podcast. We're getting to that stage now. Twitter Spaces have been sort of the talk of social media, really, haven't they, over the past sort of fortnight or so. I mean, we've had the Sing Your Dialect sort of space, and for those that sort of may not have heard of Twitter Spaces, I mean, I'm sure everyone has it. It sort of gives Twitter accounts the opportunity to really do a live broadcast where you can sort of speak as the owner of the live, but also get people in and talk as well. And really it sort of works as if it's almost like an online phone-in, really. And of course we hosted one of them on the Thursday just gone. I'm sure, for those that joined, I think we got some good feedback, so hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Nathan, I know me and you both definitely enjoyed it. It's something that we both want to do going forward. We're looking at probably once a week. I mean, Nathan, I've said you've enjoyed it, and I hope I speak truly there. But it's a nice opportunity to have some of the followers from the account and just discuss Boro, really. It's sort of informal, and we can just chat about Middlesbrough and have some opinions and sort of dissect those.
Yeah, and you get all sorts of good opinions, ones that may be unpopular, where it just gives people a place to express their opinions, get things off the chest about Boro. Just tell us how you're feeling, really, and it is a good place to do it. Everyone was all welcoming, and the feedback was good from the first space that we did. So hopefully we have more people come along to the one on this Thursday and get discussing Swansea on Saturday coming up.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look forward to, and as Nathan says, we're looking to do it on Thursday again this week. So as I said earlier, we'll be looking to do this weekly, and it was just to mention it on the podcast, really, because it is something that I think, going forward, it could be quite an exciting thing, really, having people's opinions and listening out for listeners of this podcast. And even if people aren't, maybe it can attract some more listeners to this podcast. Who knows, Nathan? So yeah, after touching on that, I think we can start previewing Swansea, really, Nathan. And it's at that stage again in the season, and there's no better feeling really where you just want the next game to come thick and fast, really, don't you? We watched the Huddersfield game, and you're so excited, you're on cloud nine, and you just want to see Boro play again. And it's not very often you can say that, to be honest. But I mean, luckily we're back at the Riverside. Swansea are the opponents, and Swansea, similarly to us, really, have sort of undergone a little bit of change this season, and Russell Martin's come in and is doing a fantastic job, I must say, after losing the likes of Andre Ayew last season. And yeah, for me, he's doing a terrific job. They're currently sitting 9th in the table, 1 point above us, I believe. But yeah, Nathan, it's going to be a difficult test, but one that, again, I think Chris Wilder will be looking at and thinking, back at the Riverside, there's no reason why we can't go and win that game.
Yeah, they're always a good side to watch, Swansea, in the Championship. As we spoke about earlier, they dominate the ball, and it's been a part of their identity, which is, of course, the buzzword. It's been a part of their identity for many a year now, that they like to keep the ball, play some good attacking football, and look to score a lot of goals, really. And they've done that so far this term under Russell Martin, which it is a very strange one, because I didn't think that Russell Martin would have had as much success as he has so far this season at Swansea City. Of course, he's only managed at MK Dons in League One, and the step up to Swansea, who, of course, were in the playoff final last season, is a big step up, and he's introduced a good philosophy, and it's found themselves in the top half, and they've got some very good players in the side as well, just ones that we've noted down. Joel Perrault, the sign from PSV Eindhoven in the summer, he was their top goal scorer this season, 10 goals and 4 assists, which is a very good return at this stage of the season. And of course, the other man is Jamie Patterson, who was, of course, on trial at Boro under Neil Warnock in this summer. Didn't really pull up any trees for us in the pre-season games that we played against York and Plymouth. He looked a bit off the pace, but he signed for Swansea City, and he's arguably been their best player so far this season, which sums it up perfectly for us. He scored 8 and set up 4, and it seems that he's on a very, very good run of form at the minute. So hopefully we can keep him quiet, because he'll be floating around Perrault looking to create lots of chances, and he doesn't mind firing in one himself. So yeah, we just need to be wary of Patterson, of course.
Yeah, and of course, Swansea, and we said this about both Millwall and Preston last week. They play the 5 at the back, and it's not so much a trend anymore. It seems like every other team in this division, and in the EFL, and even arguably in the Premier League, is using this sort of 3 or 5. There's different ways of calling it, but the 3 centre backs and wing backs formation. And it's one of them where they can match us up with the way that Chris Wilder wants to play. And as you say, it'll be interesting, because Perrault so far this season has been sort of deadly on that left foot, and with Jamie Patterson sort of lurking in behind him, and he, as you say, can fire one in left foot and right foot. He's strong on both. So they certainly will cause us problems, and they have the players to definitely punish us if we do give them too many chances. But it's an exciting prospect, to be honest, because it's 2 teams that are going to try and keep the ball on the ground and play good stuff. So from a neutral point of view, it could be a good game. But from a Boro point of view, again, it's a game that it will be difficult, but there's no reason why we can't go and get another win under Chris Wilder's belt.
Yeah, I want to think that way, but in the last few weeks we have said, oh, well, we should win this game, or hopefully we go into this game and win. So I'm not going to give my opinion on on the
Okay.
result, because
It
it'll
makes
just
sense.
come back to bite us, because Emil Rees being mentioned in the last one, of course, he scores the winner. We've had Horgan this season as well for Birmingham, Keane Lewis Potter. We've had loads where we've said, oh yeah, these are players to watch, and they've put us to the sword. So hopefully the players that we've mentioned today about Swansea City, hopefully they're kept relatively quiet next week and don't really get a sniff against us.
Yeah, well, Nathan, I mean, I didn't quite say that we should be beating them, but, I just said we can go and put them under pressure and cause them problems. The words that we should beat Swansea haven't come out of my mouth, so hopefully the footballing gods, if they are up there, and I'm sure they are kind to me and don't make me regret everything that's just come out of my mouth. So, yeah, I mean, Swansea to look forward to next week. We'll be both at that game. And, yeah, it's an exciting time to be a Middlesbrough fan. It's an exciting time to record this podcast, Nathan. I mean, I've said it for the past 2 weeks now. We're on the 97 mark. 3 more subscribers. I've said it for it. People that are listening to this are probably bored of it by this point, but I've said 100 subscribers to a lot of YouTube people in that space is nothing, but it would mean a lot to us to hit that 100, hit that round 100, and just, yeah, it would be nice. So if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, give us a review and make sure it's 5-star, because that would just be very nice as well. Any audio platforms, of course, give us a good rating, be kind. I'm sure in the good mood that Middlesbrough are producing at the moment, that it shouldn't be a problem. But from me and Nathan, again, another week of the Boropolis Podcast. We'll look forward to hopefully recording next week after another Boro win. But yeah, that's been another episode of the Boropolis Podcast. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll see you again soon.